Hey everyone, Sam here, otherwise known as FPL Pricey. In today's transfer tips video, I will be sharing my thoughts on some of the most popular players to be buying and selling ahead of FPL Gameweek 9. Right then, plenty to talk about in today's transfer tips video, so I'm going to get right on with it. If you do enjoy the video, I'd massively appreciate it if you could leave a like and hit subscribe to the channel. I do provide daily content as we build up to each game week deadline. Let's start off with the first hat-trick hero of the Premier League this season. That is Jean-Philippe Mateta, scored 3 goals against Bournemouth. What a performance, by the way, although some Mateta owners might come out of that game thinking, well, it could have been even more than that because his underlying attacking data was absolutely unbelievable. In fact, it was even higher than 3xG, which is very rare for a hat-trick. So if anything, he actually technically underperformed on his data when scoring a hat-trick. His data so far this season as well has been very, very encouraging. He's up to 1xG per 90 across an 8-game week stretch. That is a phenomenal return. In fact, only Erling Haaland is competing with that at this stage, and you would expect it to drop down a little bit, but these are still elite numbers. And even if it does drop down by even 50%, he's still running pretty good at 7.5 million. The only problem with Mateta, and we'll talk about Munoz in a moment as well, is the next fixture in the block is Arsenal away from home. It doesn't get any more difficult than that for attacking players. Arsenal have kept 5 clean sheets, I think it is now, in 8 Premier League games, watertight at the back. But if anyone's going to be able to break them down right now, it is Jean-Philippe Mateta, who is breaking down pretty much any defence in terms of his underlying XG. And you wouldn't put it past him to be able to get an attack and return in that game. And let's face it, if you're wildcarding this week, you can probably ignore a 1-game week sample and look beyond that to what is a pretty positive run for Crystal Palace. I don't know if I was using free transfers, I'd prioritise him this week because of the fixture, but I've got my eye on him, and especially for those of us who've got someone like a João Pedro in our sides, from game week 10 onwards, it's going to be pretty tempting to go to Jean-Philippe Mateta, especially if he finds a way to net away from home in the toughest fixture on the entire Premier League schedule, Arsenal away from home. Let's move on to another Crystal Palace player now, though. Daniel Munoz is, of course, proving that it's not all about defensive contributions for defenders this year. Although he's not so bad on them himself every now and then, you can rely on him to get the odd extra 2 points. But it's the underlying attacking data that is particularly promising with him. It has been for a couple of seasons now. 0.33 XGI per 90 for a wingback is very good underlying data. 4 attacking returns in 8 game weeks so far, so he is outperforming that data. But again, he's a player that we know is usually going to get roughly 10 to 15 attacking returns a season. In this Crystal Palace side, there are 3 key players that seem to be farming all of the chances created as well. That is Jean-Philippe Mateta, we've just talked about, Ismaila Sarr, popular pick, and Daniel Munoz in the back line. He's the cheapest of the bunch. He also gets clean sheets as a defender and the odd defensive contribution as well. Incredibly good value at 5.6 million. A bit like Mateta, probably wouldn't be prioritising him ahead of Arsenal away from home, but he'll likely get DEFCON in that game. He'll have a lot of defending to do, and you never know. With a player with this kind of attacking pedigree, he could get you an attacking return in any game week, so he's never a bad player to be bringing in. But like I said, very similar to Mateta, and also with Sarr in mind as well. If you're looking for when to buy them, the answer is probably game week 10 onwards, in my personal opinion. But if you're a form-led kind of FPL manager, which I know many of you are, then you can almost ignore the fixtures and just say, right, he's good value for money. He's going to keep getting attacking returns. I don't want to second guess when those are going to come necessarily, so I'm going to take a chance on it ahead of game week 9 against Arsenal regardless. But he's a player that is going to continue to provide good value for money at under 6 million. His ownership will rise, but probably not by that much ahead of game week 9. By game week 10 onwards, I imagine he's going to become very popular. And it's one of the reasons that I'm holding off on buying any other Crystal Palace defenders right now, because I'm not sure about doubling up. But I also want to leave my options open to get to Munoz or Guéhi or Lacroix, but most likely Munoz, given his form and given that attacking upside that he provides. I'm going to be very tempted to go there pretty soon in the future, if not game week 10, pretty soon after that as well. What a game that 3-3 draw between Bournemouth and Crystal Palace was, by the way. On the other side of that, we had a brace from young prodigy Krupi Jr. at 4.5 million. Could he be the cheap forward option that we all need to help restructure our side to put some more money into the midfield longer term? Well, possibly, but I wouldn't get your hopes up too much just yet. The reason that he started was because Evan Nilsson had a minor calf injury. Iraola wasn't giving us too much information pre-match about Evan Nilsson's injury and the nature of that, how significant it was going to be. He also mentioned that we don't know how long he's going to be out, but we don't think it's that serious. He actually also specifically said, we don't know whether it will be 1 week, 2 weeks, or 3 weeks. So I think it's quite hard to predict whether or not Krupi Jr. is going to be safe for the foreseeable future as a player that you can rely on starting. But given that he's already scored 3 Premier League goals this season in very limited minutes, and his one start of the season, he scored a brace against a tight Crystal Palace defence, I think there's a possibility that he just finds a way to win that place and make it his own in the long term anyway. So don't rule that out. I still think Evan Nilsson is going to be first choice, but Krupi Jr. is knocking that door down at the moment, and he's providing Iraola with a real decision to make, considering when he's on the pitch, he's scoring his chances. So if he starts, the projections are 0.47 XGI per 90 over the next 5. But there is a significant doubt as to how long he's going to continue starting for. And until we see a run of games when Evan Nilsson is back and fit and still on the bench with Krupi Jr. starting in front of him, I'm going to be relatively cautious on whether or not I want to recommend this guy for anyone at this point in time. Now, feel free to take a risk on him. He might start that Nottingham Forest game. You never know. Evan Nilsson might be out for a game or two. But even after that, Man City away, Aston Villa away, it's not a great run, so I'd probably just maybe leave it to one side for now. And then by the time we get to game week 12, if Krupi Jr. has won that place and it looks like Evan Nilsson is now going to be the bench option, which I personally think is going to be relatively unlikely because Evan Nilsson is a good Premier League striker. But it's not impossible. If that happens by game week 12, then at 4.5 million, and let's face it, he won't get to 5 million by that point anyway, he's still going to be a good option. So I think for me, he's a wait and see, a very exciting wait and see, but Evan Nilsson could come back at any moment, could even be back for game week 9 at time of recording. We just don't know that. So an exciting player, one that I will keep an eye on, but I think for now, I'm just going to leave it to one side until we get to about game week 12. And we've seen how Bournemouth are shaping up when both of them are fit at the same time. So let's change direction very quickly and look at Man City. Now, obviously, no questions about Erling Haaland. Goes and scores another brace in a 2-0 win against Everton. But what I found really interesting is that Reinders was actually subbed off very early in this one. And it's something that I've been talking about on the channel for the last couple of game weeks since we've seen that other players are getting fit and starting to be in contention to playing relatively good minutes for City once again. Reinders is a fantastic Premier League player, has started off the season very well, a little bit unlucky for owners for him not to get more attacking returns than he has gotten. However, I think now we're hitting the period of the season where fixtures are coming thick and fast. Man City have got a very stacked squad, especially in these sort of positions. And I'm not going to be surprised if Reinders either gets brought off early every now and then to conserve his legs for other important matches when games are done and dusted, when they think that they're safe. Not going to be surprised to see him brought off early, or maybe even missing the odd game so he's fresh for a Champions League tie, for instance. And obviously Man City are going to be fighting on multiple fronts. They're going to want to conserve some of their better players for those matches. So unless your name's Erling Haaland, I think it's very hard to predict with complete certainty who is going to start week in, week out and getting 90 minutes. Even Gvardiol, who previously I thought was going to be relatively locked into that Man City defence, missed out in game week 8. And even earlier this season, people like Doku, who a lot of FPL managers were buying and considering, he gets benched as well. So Reinders is a very good player. I have no doubts on the quality of the pick. And at 5.8 million, still very good value for money. But don't be surprised if he gets brought off early every now and then. Got a 59th minute sub in game week 8. And I think we could see that trend continuing, especially now that Cherky's back. They will be fighting and jostling for position a little bit. They operate in a slightly different way. They're not exactly the same player by any means. And don't get me wrong, that's not what I'm saying. But Man City do change their system. They do change their formation within the matches. And if Pep wants something slightly different, or the game's done and they don't need to play Reinders through the 90 minutes, I wouldn't be surprised to see him brought off early every now and then. With that in mind, and with the fixtures that you see on screen here, the next 4 as a block don't look amazing. Liverpool in there, Newcastle away in there, Bournemouth and Villa aren't historically easy sides to be breaking down. I wouldn't be expecting multiple attacking returns from Reinders. And don't get me wrong, I don't think he's a desperate sell, but I certainly wouldn't be looking at buying him right now. And if you need to save the money, downgrade him to someone like a Granit Xhaka at 5 million, I don't think that's a bad call whatsoever. Or if you've got the money to go up to someone like a Undai or an Enzo if he's fit for the weekend, or even an Ismail Assar after game week 9's out of the way, I don't mind that at all. Basically, all of that to say, I don't think Reinders is an essential player to be holding on to, and do look out for the minutes over the next few game weeks. Another player that's going to be potentially on the chopping block in a lot of our FPL teams, if not now, very, very shortly, is João Pedro, who didn't exactly have the most impressive game against Nottingham Forest. Only 1 shot in that game, and that's only 2 shots in the last 4 Premier League matches. For what is a 7.6 million striker, that's very disappointing. I think we should all expect a lot more out of someone that expensive in your forward line, especially playing for an attack like Chelsea. 0.21 XG per 90. Nothing either in terms of creativity, only 0.06 XA per 90. He's been a very frustrating pick over the last 4. I'm going to say that he's still a reluctant hold, though. He still picked up 5 attacking returns in the opening 8 game weeks. And if they were spread evenly, if they were distributed across the 8 evenly, I don't think anyone would be that concerned about owning him at 7.6 million. It's just the fact that they all came right at the start of the season. And now we've gone with a block of 4 game weeks where he's gotten absolutely nothing. But fixtures do bring form. And yes, he's blanked against Nottingham Forest, which was on paper a pretty easy fixture. But he's still got another good stretch of fixtures to come. Sunderland at home. Yes, Sunderland have looked pretty decent themselves, but it's not a bad fixture. Spurs away, fine. That's not going to be easy. But then Wolves at home, who have really struggled this season, followed by Burnley away, another pretty easy fixture. I don't think that he's a player that you need to be desperately selling yet. But he's someone that I've got my eye on to be getting rid of if he continues to perform this poorly, not getting any shots away. Obviously, for a striker, that is your bread and butter. You need to be getting shots, and he's not. So I do understand why some people would be selling him, especially for the likes of Jean-Philippe Mateta. And if you're a form-led manager, I could understand even doing that this week, regardless of the fixture that Mateta's got next up. But I think fixtures do come into play here. And the next 4, I would be surprised if João Pedro doesn't get some attacking returns in this next batch. And the minutes still look fairly secure. He's not going to play in the Champions League in midweek because he's suspended. And then Sunderland after that is a good home fixture. I'd be surprised if over the next 4, we're not a lot happier with him as an FPL pick. If he continues to blank by the time we get to game week 12, then it's a very easy downgrade to someone a lot cheaper in your forward line. Or if you're again, a bit more of a form-led manager, you could make the move a little bit earlier for someone like a Jean-Philippe Mateta or the next striker we're going to be talking about. So Nick Woltemarde's impressive start to life in the Premier League continued at the weekend. Another beautifully taken goal against Brighton. Absolutely astounding performance from him yet again. And that's 4 goals in his opening 5 Premier League fixtures for Newcastle. I'm particularly encouraged, not only by the underlying data, which is very good, or the fact that he's finishing incredibly well at the moment too, but I'm also encouraged by the fact that he got 90 minutes. So to start with for Newcastle, he was getting brought off a little bit early. Eddie Howe had referenced that he's struggling with the physicality and perhaps the pace as well of the Premier League. I mean, to me, it doesn't look like he's struggling with that at all. And as he's played more and more minutes, I think Eddie Howe trusts him more to finish the full 90. And again, even more encouraging, Anthony Gordon gets brought off early yet again, who is normally Newcastle's penalty taker. And we know from previous situations where Anthony Gordon got brought off early, the next in line to take the penalty is Woltemarde. So if he's getting regular 90 minutes and Gordon gets brought off early, Woltemarde will get some penalty share as well in those last few minutes of the match, which makes him an even more encouraging FPL pick. 7.3 million at time of recording. I'm going to post this on the Monday morning, though. I think he's going up overnight, so it'll be 7.4 million. He's rising very quickly, but I still think he's very good value for money. As long as he's under 8.5 million, I still think he's going to be pretty good value. And yes, Wissa is back in training, so we do have to keep an eye on that. But in the form he's in, I think it would be ridiculously harsh for him to lose his spot or to get reduced minutes. And I think at this point, it's much more likely that Wissa is worked in slowly, but even when he gets back into the starting 11 for Newcastle, I could see them playing a 4-4-2, incorporating both of them into the starting 11 rather than one or the other. And if it is one or the other, you've got to say that it's Voltemada's place to lose right now. He looks very comfortable up front for Newcastle, and I don't think they're going to want to change that. So very encouraged by him. 4 goals in 5 league games. Good fixtures to come. Man City at home is the most difficult one for a very long time, all the way up to game week 24. They've got a pretty good run of fixtures. And even that Man City game, it's at home. Wouldn't be surprised if they managed to get some attacking returns in that one either. So overall, very encouraged by Voltemada, especially because he's getting 90 minutes. I would say he's a very good purchase. Okay, so I'm recording this just after full time between Liverpool and Man United. So I'm going to use this last section or two to talk about a few of the more interesting picks in those ranks. Gakpo comes out on top right now, 0.4 XG per 90, mainly bolstered by his performance just now against Man United. Hit the woodwork 3 times. Obviously, eventually got his goal. Very well deserved. He's up to 5 attacking returns for the season. And my main reservation about picking Cody Gakpo up until this point has been around minutes. Given that Liverpool have so much attacking talent in their ranks, I was convinced that Gakpo's minutes would probably be up for debate and in question over the next run, especially with Champions League, especially with other competitions. And I don't think my opinion on that has massively changed. I still think there is risk attached to picking Cody Gakpo. But at 7.5 million, I'm starting to come around to the idea that the risk might be worth taking on the minutes. The data's good. He looks like Liverpool's best attacker right now, in all honesty, especially in the Man United game. But given that Mo Salah is so expensive at 14.4 million, are you getting that much more value out of him? 7 million more value out of Salah. Yes, he has penalties, and previously he's been the most secure Liverpool attacker for minutes, but the underlying data is currently favouring Gakpo. And most interestingly, in the Man United game, it was Salah that got brought off slightly early when they were chasing the game, not Gakpo, which might mean nothing, but I also think it could potentially signal that Slot has a lot more faith in Gakpo than maybe we've seen in recent seasons. So if he can continue to play 90 minutes week in, week out, and Isak and Ekitike aren't fighting him on the left wing for his position, but more fighting between each other to have that centre forward role, then Gakpo's minutes down that left-hand side do look a little bit more secure. The underlying data is good. He's playing as an inside forward off the left-hand side, which he looks very comfortable doing so. His main competitor from last season, Luis Diaz, is no longer at the club. And it doesn't look like anyone else is really challenging him for that position significantly right now. I'm sure every now and then he will get brought off early. I think that's just par for the course with most of the Liverpool front line, given the amount of options they've got. But in what is one of the best attacks in the league, yes, they're slightly faltering right now, but I still back them in the long run to get plenty of goals. The fixtures turn really positive after game week 12. I still would want a Liverpool attacker by that point, and Gakpo is right up there in my consideration right now at a much cheaper price than Mo Salah. He's going to be much easier to get to. You miss out on the penalties, but I think the data is evening out a little bit now, and if the minutes are just as secure for Gakpo as they are for Salah, I think he's well in the conversation, and I think a lot more people are going to be tempted to just go with the cheaper option now, considering that Mo Salah at the moment just doesn't look quite himself. He's still getting a few chances, but not many more than Gakpo's getting. So again, for almost half the price, right now, I don't think there's much of a conversation. I think it's Gakpo over Salah, given the value for money. But obviously, things can change by the time you get to game week 12. So I'm not going to count Salah out of it just yet. Same with Isak, same with Ekitike. Even Florian Wirtz could come back into our thinking by that point. A lot can change in 4 game weeks. But if you're buying someone right now, and I don't think it's a horrendous time to be buying them, especially if you're looking at free hitting in game week 11, which I know a number of you are, it's not a bad time to be buying a Liverpool player. And if I was, right now, it would probably be Cody Gakpo. Right then, so let's wrap up the video by talking about one of the more impressive Man United FPL picks so far this season. That is Bryan Mbeumo. Obviously scored in the 2-1 win against Liverpool today. A pretty impressive performance from him. And the underlying data so far this season suggests that, yet again, he's going to be in our thinking as a good FPL pick once more. 0.51 XGI per 90 is pretty decent, not bad whatsoever. Even at 8 million, that's pretty good value for money. A little bit unlucky to only have 3 attacking returns so far this season. And I think given the fixtures, not even only over the next 4, but across quite a long stretch now, all the way up to, I think it's game week 21 or 22, just before they play Man City and Arsenal back to back, they've got a very long run of pretty decent fixtures. So I do think over the next few fixtures, Man United assets are going to come back into our thinking. Now, Bruno Fernandes is going to be one of the more popular picks. Obviously got the assist today. I think he also picked up maximum bonus points, not locked in at time of recording, but another pretty decent performance from him. So he's going to be a good option. Bryan Mbeumo is $1 million cheaper though, and I think he's got slightly better underlying XG per 90, so a bit more open play goal threat. So if you're not a massive Bruno fan, and I know a lot of you aren't, you can save $1 million, go with someone a little bit more differential, with a little bit more attacking upside from open play, and just as secure on the minutes as well, by the way. He's getting 90 minutes regularly. Bryan Mbeumo seems like a pretty decent pick over the next run, and I don't think he's going to be mass bought either, considering most people probably flock towards the penalty taker Bruno Fernandes. But how many more penalties does Bruno need to miss before Bryan Mbeumo or Cunha steps up and takes the next one? I don't know. I think Bruno definitely takes the next one, given what Amorim said in, I think it was his pre-match press conference. It was joking about Bruno Fernandes continuing to take them. So I think it's still his to lose. But if he misses 1 or 2 more, then Mbeumo would probably put his hand up as a very good penalty taker, probably taking one of the next ones after that. So I don't think it's completely out of the question, but we can't assume that he's going to take penalties anytime soon. Either way, though, even without penalties baked in, good underlying attacking data, good fixtures to come, not a bad pick in my book. Although, if you've got the extra million, I still think that Bruno Fernandes just about shades it. As we reach the end of today's video, I'd really appreciate it if you could leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed the video. And I'll see you next time as we run through my essential guide ahead of FPL Game Week 9.